Hello, it's Daz. I can already hear the flack I'll get in talking about the blood moon and how it could mean something prophetic. Because anytime you talk about the moon and the stars, everyone's like, no man knows the day or the hour. And you're right, I don't know the day or the hour. I do believe that cosmic signs are real. And it's no coincidence when you have 3 celestial bodies in alignment on Pi Day, which mathematically is its own sphere. What's fascinating about it when we look over in scripture, just to give a few, and then I'll explain my perspective on this, is Acts 2, verse 20. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of the Lord come. Joel 2:31. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. Revelation 6:12 through 14. And I beheld, when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Matthew 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So there's just a few scriptures, and there's many others that talk about signs in heaven. And we've had blood moons. I remember when people made a big deal about the tetrad of blood moons, and it's crazy to me because there's been many that have occurred, but not all of them are visible depending on where you are on Earth. The last one I can recall that I saw with my own eyes was when I was 21. It was actually on my 21st birthday, and I thought, oh, that's so cool, I'm coming of age on a blood moon. Now I'm 30, and then I saw the blood moon last night. I stayed up and watched it in its whole totality, and it was beautiful, but I also felt like things have been shifting. And I have felt God telling me throughout this year that this is going to be a time where there's going to be a lot of shifts in the spirit. I don't know how many of you guys have felt that. For one thing, we're seeing unprecedented weather, whether it is the fog that kicked off the year, the wildfires in Los Angeles. Fun fact, when I was sleeping last year, I had a dream about Los Angeles, and I've talked about how I've been there for work a lot and my connection to LA. I heard in my dream, LA is where you go to manifest. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, but what's so weird about it now looking back is one of my visits out there, I was going to see the Chanel Islands, and I was in Ventura, and I kept seeing like Palisade cars, and I'm by the Palisades, a little further north of the Palisades, and I kept hearing Palisades, 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 and I'm like, what does that even mean? You know, it's a defense. And then that was one of the areas that was struck. Also, my novel cover from my 2019 sequel to Volatile, Embers, that I talked about in 2020, I believe, in a video, but I published in 2019, and I'm yet to finish the 3rd book in the trilogy. The cover is similar to one of the wildfires that occurred, and it's just weird because I had the Scylla Solomon, and the reason I use the Scylla Solomon is because it's a part of the plot. But you know, the Scylla Solomon is oftentimes affiliated with the occult, and occultists are obsessed with Solomon and his knowledge, and you could tie the number 666 back to Solomon. But when I had the cover created, I actually wanted Washington DC to burn in the cover because a lot of the book toward the end took place in DC, and the first novel took place in Los Angeles. But my illustrator, he didn't get the full memo, and he did it over the skyline of LA. And what's interesting is when the fires happened, it reddened the skies and made the moon have that eerie glow. And it's almost like my book cover and then the picture, and I'll put it up as the thumbnail probably for this video, but that blew my mind a lot. But just seeing things like that happen give me chills. And then Los Angeles got hit with snow not long after, flooding, and now they had a tornado in Pico Rivera. And then speaking of the other LA, or Louisiana's been going through it. They had a shooting and that guy drive into the crowd. They had the Super Bowl, and they had snow. We had snow in North Florida near Pensacola and Destin. And now they have severe weather coming their way. And we're seeing more storms. winter storms pop off in areas that don't usually get snow, tornadoes in areas like Los Angeles where they don't usually get it, or even like New York has had some tornadoes recently. It's telling me that God is speaking through the weather. Even if you believe there's weather manipulation going on, God is still allowing that to happen. So I definitely look at everything from what's happening in the heavens to what's happening with our weather as a sign of him speaking. We've also seen with politics how we're in the middle of this tariff war and things are getting tense. And I do wonder, as an American citizen, what our maps are going to look like in the future, because one thing about Trump is, whether you love or hate him, he does do his best to try to follow through with whatever he says, no matter how crazy it seems. And the fact he has his eyes on Greenland, he has his eyes on Canada being the 51st state, and even his idea to declare cartels a terrorist organization. Everyone keeps saying how if the US could ever invade Mexico to take out the cartel, I wouldn't be too surprised if that didn't happen. There's definitely a lot happening with our weather, with our politics. And God is the true architect of the universe. And the truth is, I've been studying simulation theory more, and then I know like channels like Woodward TV, he's been covering it really well. I'm a big fan of his work. But working more and more in IT, especially now that I'm getting more onto the technical side, looking at code, running queries, it's almost as if we do live in a simulation. I don't necessarily think other humans are controlling our lives. I think other people try to. I think social media is one of those ways where people do try to manipulate the elements. But at the end of the day, God, the Most High, he's the one that's in control. I do find all of this that's happening. I remember God telling me before 2025 came that we thought 2020 shifted things. And last week I talked about how we're living in the post-pandemic era and how energy shifted. If we were talking computer code in a simulation, it's almost like when you code, it's like writing a book. There's syntax errors you can get. And if you have a syntax error, it's not going to produce anything. Or you can break the system with the bad code. In a way, it feels like there's been different shifts in that way. So we've definitely seen that. And then another thing I also wanted to briefly touch on is the idea, it was brought to my attention, and then I've also seen it floating around TikTok. I don't know too much about it. People claiming that the wealthy at these lavish parties eat mermaids. I don't have much information on it, but again, it goes back to the days of Noah, sirens, mermaids, and I've definitely seen everyday people. Like I remember when I first started making videos, it was kind of a niche subject. Now I see it all over TikTok, people talking about the Book of Enoch and all of the elements of it. So the knowledge is spread very far and wide now. And then the other thing I've been hearing a lot about is duendes, and a lot more people talking about that. And it just kind of reminds me of last week's topic on Naguals and how more people are looking into Mesoamerican and indigenous folklore and how people are claiming that there's manifestations of some of these beings. I think across the world, no matter what we call them, they're all the same things. There is good and evil out there. But I do think as we see an uptick in our weather events and our cosmic signs, that we're going to see an uptick in paranormal activity as well. And I did hear that apparently this weekend in some parts of the world there will be the aurora borealis visible. Just wanted to share my thoughts on these things. I'd like to know what you guys think, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, a great weekend. Take care. God bless. Until next time.